Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to Tech with Peter Mbanugo. And this week I have another guest, but we are having a different topic, different from what we've been doing over the last few weeks, taking a bit of a tangent to talk about DevOps. And this week I've got Dennis. I think Denislav Gavrilov is the name.
Yeah,
Uh, Dennis is a senior platform engineer by faith, according to him, and a mixed martial developer by heart. He will tell us what that is in a moment. And Dennis, over to you. Let us know a bit about you.
yeah. Hi everyone. I am Denislav Gavrilov. As Peter said, I'm doing DevOps. I have been doing it for 5 years now, and I became senior on my third year on paper. I don't know if I'm senior on paper. I like to think I'm good at it, but who knows? I might not be. No, I'm good at it. And yeah, at work I'm doing platform engineering, as I like to call it, and I'm also leading the DevOps team, and I'm a part of another team. But this is a pretty normal behavior when you're in a company for a long time. You start shifting through teams and doing a lot of the work that you would usually not do if you're a new hire.
Oh, yeah, I think with more longer time, you build more trust in the teammate and you give them enough stuff to do. But I guess maybe because you're a platform engineer, you get to work with different teams if that's the case.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was only doing like the pipelines, the cloud, the Terraform, the Kubernetes. But as time passes, you find ways to actually bring value to the company, not only by applying their already used practices, but finding your own ways to like build the platform. So then you start being part of multiple teams. You also start doing development, and yeah, as you said,
Yeah.
with time.
Awesome. So today our topic is focused around DevOps and platform engineering. We want to see how I would love to talk to you about maybe a bit about getting into the career, but also, what it means to be DevOps or platform engineer and how your day to day looks like. Hopefully, we get enough real time guests with questions, and I'm hoping that that will help us. We will derive some of our questions from the audience today. If not, I have my own set of questions to ask you. So if that's fine for you, and no answer has to be perfect while we're chatting. Just everything from your experience or from your own point of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the first question, or rather maybe a bit of background, we were part of the Digital Ocean. I think, what did they call it? They had this.
The Navigators program.
Yeah. And are you still part of the program?
Well, I think we're all still part of the program if we do stuff, but there is nothing active there right now, so who knows?
Yeah, I think I saw too. Yeah. During my time with them, I was also doing a bit like using their Kubernetes product and all, but now I don't do so much Kubernetes day to day. So looking at you are still very hands-off day to day on Kubernetes and DevOps. How would you say? What would you say? How would you define DevOps?
Okay, so I'm often posting about this, and I personally, okay, right now, I personally don't think that DevOps is a real role. It's more of a mindset or a philosophy. But if you asked me this question like 2 years ago, I would say, well, DevOps is the practice of automating stuff, creating CI/CD pipelines, like your fellow employees doing something manually. You need to find a way to automate this. You're working with cloud, you're working with infrastructure as code. All those things I would have said that they're DevOps. Right now, I think that DevOps is a philosophy that a team, a corporation, or an individual can get accustomed to. Right. I can give a few examples. You can have a team and like the site reliability engineering team, for example, the SREs. The SREs are not necessarily does not necessarily have to have DevOps practices in place. They can go manually in the cloud. They can manually install updates on servers. They can manually set up the servers. They can have a script here and there to do some stuff automatically. But uh, adopting DevOps is more like um, having the whole mindset of using state, for example, when using Kubernetes, using state when you're using Terraform, automating most of your deployments, keeping track of your deployments with systems that you have built, and generally introducing like development methodologies to your infrastructure teams. That's what I believe DevOps is and the DevOps mindset.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's been. I'm happy to see how you've transitioned your mindset, because I've also worked a bit unofficially as a DevOps. Or rather, I
Yeah.
had probably two roles officially as a DevOps engineer when I was consulting for, I think their name is Hook here in Germany. But what I find with a lot of people I work with is when they think of DevOps, they think of it as like what I would call like a system admin role,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
past. There's still the gap between developer and operations, and they just see the DevOps guy as the IT ops, and then people just change the name, to make it look fancy. And then, it's like, it's also similar to the agile movement. Everybody started saying we are agile, but then you
Yeah.
get in deep down, you see everybody still using waterfall or some kind of hacked agile, and they tell you, oh, it's our own flavor of agile.
Yeah.
And I just shrug it off, because they don't really understand the value, that it's a mindset. And because of that, they still face challenges, with shipping products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like as with Agile, so as with DevOps, this is so broad. Like you can have so many ways of doing it that in different corporations, in different companies, you will be seeing different people do different things. Like you can be a DevOps engineer, and the only thing that your day to day, I mean, the only task that you're doing daily might be to update pipelines.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen in some companies, which is yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's like, it's a problem. I think it's a general, I don't know, should I say a human problem, or should I say a programmer or a software developer mindset problem? Because then when you fail to see it as what it is, like in terms of DevOps, it's about the philosophy, the mindset of trying to ship faster to production, and bridging the gap between IT developers and the operations team. When you see it that way, it creates more synergy between those two departments, rather than keeping them separate. And people don't usually find that. But I'm glad you covered it. Maybe if people with the other mindset are listening, maybe they will have a different perspective. But if you don't, I recommend a book from, I think, from Dave Farley. I can't remember the name of the book, if it's Modern Software Engineering or Continuous Delivery, I think is the name of the book. He talks a lot about it, so this could clear up the misconception if you're interested. But I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
yes, I think that this shift in the mindset cannot happen on its own. Like you have to be introduced to it. It's like it's not a code, but you have to have a authority figure that daily shows you what DevOps is and help you make this transition. Because I would have never been able to make this transition if it wasn't for the lead solutions architect I worked with, and he actually tried to introduce DevOps in all the teams, like the developers doing DevOps work and the platform team doing DevOps work. Then he showed me what platform engineering is, and it just clicked, like it's DevOps. If you're a developer and you don't know how to manage the underlying infrastructure of what you are developing for, then how are you going to write good code, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you should be initiated in the DevOps world.
Yeah. And DevOps is not just CI/CD. So if you are good with CI/CD, it doesn't mean, oh, he's a DevOps engineer. No, I was in such situation in one of my previous roles, and because I was good with GitHub Actions and CI/CD, and suddenly, every question about Kubernetes, GitHub Actions, CI/CD, everybody brought to me and like, oh, he's a DevOps guy, and it took a hard time to try to give them the whole philosophy behind it. But I know you mentioned SRE. So what is before we describe the difference? Uh, would you also touch on what is platform engineering?
Yeah, so
And
I
if
have been,
it's a philosophy or role, like unlike
no,
DevOps.
I think platform engineering is an actual role. I have been thinking about this a few days ago. So it all resides in operations, right? Operations is that area of tech where you have infrastructure and you're operating on some kind of infrastructure. And then you have the system administrators, which are administrating systems, which is logging onto the server, looking at the monitoring dashboard, fixing some stuff, but you don't have that much of automation there. You don't get to touch a lot of Terraform when you're a sysadmin, and you don't get to touch a lot of, let's say, GitOps like Argo CD when you're a sysadmin. You're more like a very good professional of doing stuff on the fly manually. Then there are the tech supports as well, but tech support is you're following a set of rules and you reply and so on. And then there is the site reliability engineering, which I believe is sysadmin on steroids, because you're again administering a certain system, but you have the skills to administer a certain system that is built on DevOps practices. Like as a site reliability engineer, if something breaks on production because of the Terraform failing or somebody click ops in the Azure portal or AWS portal, you as a SRE would be able to go into the Terraform, figure out what's going on, apply the new Terraform config, and fix it that way instead of clicking manually. And then platform engineering, I think, is the ability to build platforms. And why I like calling DevOps platform engineering is because you have all those parts of DevOps like CI/CD, containerization, container orchestration, clouds, on-prem, maybe hybrid clouds, multi-clouds, all those areas. You have to be able to come up with a solution and understand all those areas to build a platform, a sufficient platform. Because, okay, you can have a few Linux servers, you can have a Kubernetes cluster, but then comes the question, what are you going to install on your Kubernetes cluster? And then being a platform engineer, you think about it. You think, what are my applications? What are we hosting on those Kubernetes clusters? How many Kubernetes clusters do I need? Do I need to create a unified method for deploying a lot of Kubernetes clusters? And for example, why would I have multiple Kubernetes clusters if I can do it on one cluster? And so on and so on. Platform engineering is more like building a healthy, strong platform, but also knowing when to upgrade, when to change, and always be in the middle of all the tech developments so that you know what to introduce to your platform and what to remove from your platform.
Yeah. And what would you, define as a platform? Because I know most developers would have heard of platform as a service. We have the likes of Heroku, we have the likes of Vercel, and then we have other kinds of platform that may or may not call themselves platform as a service. How, in this case, when you talk of platform within a software engineering team and not like a service a paid service, what would you refer
Mhm.
to as a platform?
Yeah, so now that I think about it, Vercel or whatever platform as a service can also be a part of a corporate platform, because
Okay.
having a platform is you have you have some entity, be it a corporation or anything, and this entity has multiple teams. For example, they have developers for application 1, they have developers for application 2, and you also have the business guys. They need to be looking at data and numbers and so on. And the platform here comes with, the platform here is building such a, I don't know how to call it, a platform, building a platform which can handle all the deployment of the applications, can handle the hosting of the applications, can handle the monitoring, can handle all those different teams in that place. So the platform is the foundation on which this whole corporation is, corporation's tech teams are standing on. It can, to get more technical, I will give you an example with my current platform, for the customer I'm working for. So we have Kubernetes. On that Kubernetes, we are using Nginx Ingress Controller, we're using Cert Manager, external DNS, external secrets, sealed secrets, Grafana, Prometheus, and Thanos. Those are the platform components that we install on our clusters on our platform. And then we install the applications on that platform. But making it so that applications can be easily deployed to a cluster, for example, is also part of platform engineering, because then you have to make you have to make the deployment process simplified and work along all the applications. So this is also part of platform engineering. And then another example that I would give you is we have, let's say, 10 applications, and those 10 applications are deployed on 100 or between 100 and 150 sites, 100 to 150 clusters. And then some of the sites might not want to have those applications turned on, but they might want the applications to be toggable. Like if I want the application on Tuesday, I want to turn it on, but otherwise I don't want it to waste resources on my cluster. So then what I did to approach this, I wouldn't say issue, but to approach this case, is I have built a simple web application which is using the Argo Events API, and I created an API to turn on and off certain applications. And I'm doing that by just lowering the counts, the number of replicas, so that the pods are not taking on resources.
Oh, that's so. From what you said, if I would summarize, it's more like you provide a set of ready-made components for them to use within their for developers to use to run the applications.
Yes, and you also monitor if those components are working well. If they're not working well, you try to find other ways to make the whole workflow better. And you can also do it with code, like developing.
And is this setup, is it like self-serve?
What do you mean?
By self-serve, I mean like, do the developers, can they use this component, ready-made component from the platform team to ship their application without intervention from the platform, or they have to work hand in hand with the platform guys to prepare to get the ready-made components and deploy the application?
In a perfect world, the developers would only push their code and merge from some branch to main branch, and it would be deployed. Although here comes another situation where you might introduce a manual check.
Do you mind going over the process of merging and shipping again, please?
Well, the example that I gave, I didn't give the example of how our developers are shipping, but I explained that a platform engineer would be doing, would make it easier for developers to deploy. I can go through a very basic process that is used in most places. So you have a developer and they have some Git repository for the client and the API, for example, and they are pushing some code to a branch for the client, and then they are reviewing it, they are merging it to main. When they merge it to main, a container image is being created, it is being deployed to a container registry, and then if you're using Argo CD, as we are, you have the deployment pipeline changing, aligning Git that is changing the version of the image. And then Argo CD knows, okay, this application has a new version. And you go there, you check if it's, you check the diff, You check if everything is fine, you sync, and you deploy the new version.
Yeah. Yeah, then I think that's a nice flow. Uh, Not like doing it yourself or having to do them manually. Does it have to be like for this platforms? Is it all by code, or do you have like a UI where it's just click and add or click and configure?
What do you mean? Like,
So like Vercel on the platform, it has a UI, you click set
ah,
up project and do this. So I mean platform is not restricted to just the UI. It could also be CLI based. It could just be like a basic script. So how
yeah.
does what's the ideal for you?
I mean, a platform, as I'm talking about it in platform engineering, does not have one single UI. I mean, it's a set of tools all working together.
Okay.
GitHub, I mean, Azure DevOps, for example, is part of the platform. The pipelines are part of the platform. The deployment of the Kubernetes clusters are part of the platform. The tools that you're installing on your Kubernetes clusters are also a part of the platform.
Yeah.
So it's not one single portal where you're doing stuff. It's more like the whole experience of working on that platform.
Oh yeah. Have you heard of Backstage?
Yeah, what backstage? What do you mean?
Let me show you something. So how So I think it's some people use it for their developer portals. If you see my screen share, I think
Hmm. I can
yeah,
see it. Yeah.
yeah. So I think I don't know if it's from the folks at Spotify or Netflix. So I think platform engineers mostly use it to kind of build developer portal. Now they say developer portals. Before I think it was something around developer platform, and they have like a catalog. So there's like the catalog's like a set of packages already made component that you can to enable product teams to ship high quality code. I think there's some kind. It works probably only with Kubernetes, and then there's some uniform view, probably they are probably also templates to create new applications, probably similar to Vercel. And I think probably you can use this to also maybe install it in your Kubernetes cluster. I see here it says Backstage Kubernetes. uh, you pick any cloud, so that could help you maybe as a platform engineer. You pick your set of catalog for your teams, and then from the Backstage UI, from the developers part, they can just click a set of ready-made templates like this React app or React SSR template, and it knows the set of backend services in Kubernetes to configure. So I think something like this is what I was asking in terms of UI, if you had this kind of setup, or if it's
Y-
also by scripts.
Yeah. I get your question, but I don't think something like this is possible in a huge corporation because you have a lot of teams and you have a lot of people, and you have to create such a platform would require enormous brain power and enormous set of skills from multiple people who are doing this for a long, long time, in my opinion, because I highly doubt that Spotify is using this for their production environments, because then you have to go and check if something breaks, and if it breaks and the developers don't know the underlying resources that are making this platform work, then they're stuck, and we don't want stuck people, right? So platform, again, for me is something more like the whole developer experience.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mean that works and that's fine. But if you in your for your point about if Spotify uses it in production, I think they do. They they've been using it before they open sourced it, and yeah, I think a couple of people are also using that to. No, you don't have to build it from scratch, because
Yeah.
this is like already a set of they kind of group together their own standard and what has worked for them, and then you
Mm,
can just take it and install it in your cluster, and then probably configure what are templates and services and monitoring. I mean, you
mm,
still have to use your monitoring stack. So if you have like issues or you want to do some look at your traces, most likely you will look at it from your observability dashboard and monitoring. But from a developer's perspective, maybe if you are connected to Git, or if you want to check how many times you ship to production, or if you want to see for a particular microservices what it talks to, most likely you can see it from Backstage. And I think a couple of people are already using it. So I think there's also, it says here, let me show you what I see so I just don't talk out of thin air. So it says here that watch the video below to get an introduction to Backstage and to see how we use plugins to customize our internal version of Backstage at Spotify. So there are people using this. So I think for some, and it's like for huge teams, not just small teams. So
mm,
probably it varies. This is not. I think this one is open source. There used to be a company. I don't remember their name. They were doing a lot of marketing and conference as well, trying to get their platform out there. They were tagged as like the platform engineers, something something. But you know, tools like this are good to have, if it fits your situation. But I don't see them as like platform engineer tools that whenever you want to set up platform, you go for it. You have to look at what your situation is and then
yeah,
decide what you want to set up. I had a small team for a project we were prototyping, and the setup was all just GitHub Actions. You push it deploys to Kubernetes. You can configure locally what you want to see. It's like a lot more scripted without the UI. I have the book too. I wrote a book which is about building a serverless platform on Kubernetes, and this one has like UI. And then I didn't use Argo CD. I use Tecton. I don't know if you know about Tecton.
no, how is it?
TEK Tecton. Let me see if I still remember it. Tecton CD.
I found it, yes.
Yeah, so Tecton CD, and it gives you like it's like a cloud native pipeline. So I
Mm,
showed how you can connect pipelines dynamically and create like GitHub apps, so that when you add applications, it can listen to GitHub events. And then in this case, it's already like there are some set of templates it uses to deploy specific set of JavaScript application. So with a UI where you can see how many times it shipped and all. And this, you can do this by putting together this set of tools. There are so many tools out there. You mentioned Argo CD. I knew of there's Tecton. I'm sure there are many others that I don't even know. And
yeah,
it's
of course.
like programming language. There's so many useful tools, and you have to pick the one that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
comfortable working with and go with it.
I'm actually pretty puzzled by the Spotify platform that you show. I have to check if this is what I think it is, but if they manage to do this, if they manage to do this and make it as a product, that's huge because a lot of companies are struggling to find the balance of having a platform that's working and constantly updating their platform. So I must actually look at this. I
Yeah.
book.
Just check it, backstage.io. I know people use it. I think the other one I was looking for that's a paid service is platform.sh. But oh no, that's the wrong one, not platform.sh. This one is more like a Vercel product. Somehow I can't remember what they called themselves. But for me, I would either think of try checking out like this open source backstage, or do something, build something in-house and see how it feels for you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I'm already.
yeah, cool. I know you mentioned something about Terraform and a few other tools you use for your platforms. Can you give us like maybe a description or a list of what is your go-to tools for setting up your platforms?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll be giving again the example for that one customer. So we
Okay.
are using Azure DevOps for Git, right? So developers are pushing their code to Azure DevOps, and then you have Azure DevOps pipelines. I like using the YAML-based pipelines. I don't like the UI clicking, so I'm doing the pipelines in YAML. No, I'm not saying it to like brag, but I genuinely think that it's better to have a YAML file because you can see every stage what's happening, and you can't miss a button somewhere to see a configuration that you did. So anyway, um, Azure DevOps for Git, Azure DevOps for pipelines, and then the developers push some code, and you have the pipeline to build the container and push the container. Where are they going to push it? They're pushing it to Azure Container Registry. We also have both AKS clusters in the cloud, and we have K3S clusters that are deployed on-prem. We deploy our Argo CD instances on the cloud clusters, and then we deploy the K3S. I mean, we onboard the K3S to the cloud Argo CD.
So you use K3S on Azure?
No, we are using it on-prem, but from Azure, we are using the Azure Stack Edge, I think was called the service, which allows you to have Azure-like experience on your on-prem servers. But anyway, so we have the cloud cluster, we have the on-prem cluster, and then this on-prem cluster is deployed. We have 100 on-prem clusters on all the sites in the world. Then
Wow.
on Argo CD,
So I said, wow, so it's a global service.
oh yeah, I mean, it's huge.
What kind of
It's
product is that?
It's an internal product for the company, so our customers are my fellow employees from around the world.
Oh, okay. So then that means that's why you have like the huge platform serving probably thousands of employees or
I don't know if
hundreds.
there are thousands. I mean, the technical stuff is about 200-300 people, I think, maybe, or I don't know the exact number, but then there are also on-site engineers who I have never heard of. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, no worries. And then we have Argo CD installed on that cluster. Right? On Argo CD, we install Nginx ingress controller to manage the ingresses. I mean, have one IP and have multiple applications deployed under one IP. Then we have Cert Manager to automate the deployment of SSL certificates. We have external DNS so that when an application hits the cluster, it always has the DNS record created or deleted if we delete the application. We have external secrets as well so that we can fetch secrets from Azure Key Vault. And we have sealed secrets so that for stuff like configuration files, we can also keep in our Git repos. They're sealed, so if you don't have the key, you can't see them. We have Grafana for monitoring. You're using also Prometheus and Thanos. And I think we have the EOK stack. I haven't worked that much with logging in this company, but yeah, I think we have that too. We have also Velero for backing up. And maybe I'm missing
Valero
something.
for backing up what? Like
Now,
this.
Velero backing up the PVCs, for example, the PVs, the persistent volumes, generally Kubernetes backups.
Yeah. Okay.
And all of these platform tools on the Argo CD are being deployed automatically with Terraform. We're having Terraform, and we also have a Kubernetes repository. We are using Helm and Customize. With Terraform, we are deploying the clusters, the infrastructure, and then with Helm and Customize, we are deploying our templated platform tools onto the clusters. We are also using something called JSONet, but I'll tell you about this in a while. So where am I? We have the Git, we have the Azure DevOps pipelines, we have the Azure Cloud resources, we have the Kubernetes clusters, and now comes the part where the developers are deploying their applications. Like, what code are they doing? They're doing any code, for the sake of the example, React and .NET for the backend. They're pushing their code, and what happens then? How are they deploying? Well, we have this Kubernetes repository for each application where we have a structure created with JSONet. Do you know what JSONet is? I will say what JSONet is. So JSONet is a data templating language from Google, and it allows you to introduce.
Can you spell it?
Yes, GS. Oh man, I'm so bad at spelling.
GS.
GSON,
Okay.
and then you do net, like JSON net, but it's all together.
Net.
No, it's all together.
JSON.
JSON
It's
net,
a
yes.
configuration language. Interesting.
It's a data templating language from Google, and it allows you to have programming capabilities in your, let's say, JSON or YAML files. So it allows for a very broad area of templating and customizing your templates. And some people have asked me, why are we using Helm and Customize and JSONet? It's just that when we're using open source tools, some are available on Helm, some are available, like we have to turn them into our own tools. So we use Customize with that, but we also then have to template those already customized tools for 100 factories. So then we're using JSONet for that.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. I know Helm has this kind of, like you can have variables and pass them in at runtime. And I never heard of this JSONnet. I think it says it's from Google.
Yes, it is.
I need to check it out. Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
actually,
Thanks for
it's
sharing.
actually, go again.
Thanks for sharing. I'm going to check it out.
It's a very, very nice technology. I enjoy it a lot. So then the developers have this Kubernetes repository, but they don't have to touch it. And this Kubernetes repository is, we are creating an application for each application. In Argo CD, we are creating an application, and this application consists usually of an ingress, a service, and a deployment. It can also consist of an external secret to store some environment variables or such, and other Kubernetes resources. But we are doing that in the Git repo.
Yeah. Wow, I think I like your workflow. I don't use Azure, and I'm not a fan of Azure. Probably maybe I would prefer Azure a bit compared to AWS because AWS gave me
Yes,
nice
please, yes.
but I think if it comes to Kubernetes, the digital ocean is still like a preference. I worked a bit with Civo.com. I think probably for me the only sell for them is the cheap. They have a much cheaper Kubernetes cluster pricing, and they run with K3s, and so it's quite interesting. So you mentioned a lot of tools. I want to put them in the chat just in case. Here are the tools Dennis uses for platform engineering.
I can make a list and send it to you. So
yeah, or if you have if you're connected to the live stream chat, then put it there. Otherwise, just put it in the chat and I will drop it in the live stream.
yeah, let's do like that.
While you type it, I take a water break.
Well, while I'm typing, can you prove your point?
Can I what?
I just proved your point. I think that while I'm typing, I will not be communicating as sufficiently, but I can do it afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I would put also in the chat. I mentioned the book I wrote on building a serverless platform. I would put that in the chat for anyone curious. So here's my book on platform engineering, kind of not necessarily what Dennis talked about. But I think I wrote it. I talked about mostly with Knative as well. I don't know if you've heard of Knative.
The Cloud Native Foundation?
No. It's like a Kubernetes wrapper. It's supposed to be like uh, a set of tools or primitive that makes it easier to deploy applications. So think of it like you need publish subscribe, for example, on your cloud native. Then it builds on top of cloud events and gives you a way to kind of connect to Kafka and other stream and down to your application. So even if tomorrow you want to switch from RabbitMQ to Kafka, your application does not have to know about it because it
Mm.
uses this interface of cloud events and Knative, and you can just swap it up, and then it's easier to deploy because you don't have to define like stateful services and all like the YAML. I think that's what. So if you know Google Cloud Run, so imagine Google Cloud Run on Kubernetes because that's what Google Cloud Run is based on Knative. So I used to, when I was doing a lot of Kubernetes, that was my favorite tool. But now, it's been a while. I no longer contribute to it, and I don't know how much it has evolved at the moment. So that's quite a nice to check out. Knative.dev for those interested. Maybe for you, Dennis, you can check it out later. And you
I'm
mentioned,
bookmarking a
yeah, I think I like the session. It's kind of like we're brainstorming and sharing different tools. I haven't used Argo CD. I've used Tecton, and now I have to check out Argo CD. You mentioned Terraform, and what can you explain what I know? Terraform is under infrastructure as code, and can you briefly explain what infrastructure as code is? And beside Terraform, if there are other tools that you can use to get that done.
Yeah. So infrastructure as code is just managing your infrastructure with code. But I think the most important part of infrastructure as code is the state, because you
Okay.
always have that state. So you always know what you have deployed. That's the point of Terraform. And that's when things go south, when people go and start clickopsing, because you have deployed some Terraform clickopsing when you because you have deployed some resources with Terraform, but they click around and they break the state. And the next
Yeah.
time you do updates to those resources, you can't apply them because some other updates have already been deployed, and then you have to fix the state and start. You're not starting again, but that introduces complexity. So yeah, infrastructure as code is a way to manage infrastructure and know what's going on actually.
Yeah. I think I like that pattern. Maybe it's something some of this platform as a service should incorporate because if you use a tool like Bessel and maybe you change like I'm trying to think of a good example, but let's say you change something from the UI, which is not in your GitHub repository. It doesn't sync back down to your repository. So, like with Fly, for example, when I change some configuration, maybe like some scaling requirement and off directly from the CLI, the next time if I deploy on Fly, it works well, but other platform, when I deploy again with the same template it reverts to the old one, and then sometimes you forget that there have been a drift, and
Yeah,
then you have to it causes a problem in production. I think this is where Argo CD plays a lot of influence. Also Flux, I know Flux, they also, I think, what do they call it, the Flux deployment continuous delivery service, Flux as well, right?
I heard of it. I have not used it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know very.
similar to Argo, but I think now Argo has, taken over the cloud native world, and but people see you. So when you do the changes on the Kubernetes, I think some of these tools you can configure it to kind of sync back the changes to GitHub, or maybe roll back to the states from GitHub, kind of like reconciliation, and that's quite an interesting set of tools.
Yeah, I think infrastructure as code works because Again, you know what is going on. And if you don't know what is going on, for example, on AWS, and the reason why I like Azure more than AWS is if you don't tag resources in AWS, at some point, you literally don't know what you have. Even if you go to the Cost Explorer, you have this huge graph which says others or whatever it said, and you're spending thousands of dollars if you're a company, and you don't know what you're spending them on because you haven't tagged your resources. While on Azure, you're always required to create a subscription. That's why I like Azure more. If I have to choose, I'm going to choose DigitalOcean, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so when it comes to infrastructure as code, I know, have you heard of Pulumi?
Pulumi, yeah.
Yeah, I think they try to market themselves as infrastructure as software, and but basically because they have a different route. So instead of writing YAMLs for your infrastructure, you define it in normal programming language, like C
Mm,
Sharp or JavaScript or Go, for example, and I think for me, I prefer that pattern because I'm not a fan of YAML, maybe because I make a lot of mistakes when writing YAML. I prefer like JSON. Otherwise, I prefer to define it in code because I live by code. And for me, when it comes to infrastructure, I would always prefer the code part over the YAML because the code part I can tell that, oh, he's importing a module and he's doing this and this here. With YAML, with Terraform, for example, sometimes when if I haven't worked with it for a long time and I come back to it, I have to try to remember, oh, what does this mean here? What does this line of YAML mean? And I get confused over like the Terraform modules and all. Again, I need to remember what if it's with the code. I code more often than writing YAML, so I could
yeah.
remember that. Oh, this is still a module, or this is how you import module in the programming language. So I still prefer for all my infrastructure stuff, on JavaScript, since that's what I use mostly. But um, looking at in the future, moving towards advocating for everything in code. So for my infrastructure, doing something like Pulumi or something similar. For CI/CD, like instead of writing YAML on GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, I don't know if you've heard of Dagger.io. Check it out. You
No,
can
what is
also
this?
you can also define your CI flow. So instead of writing YAML and telling it what steps to run, you can define it in C Sharp or JavaScript or whatever programming language you use. And apart from being able to define it in those language, you can also like you can run it locally. So with GitHub Actions, most times you don't know what if something is going to run until you push to GitHub and see it running. But with Dagger, because it uses run C, so it uses Docker technologies behind the scene, you are sure to know that however way it runs on your local computer is how it will run in on the cloud, because you will still use it will still use the same set of container runtime to run the steps you've defined
Mm,
in code. So for me, I know I'm moving towards. I haven't used Dagger for any production situation, but I like that idea more, where I define my infrastructure uh, in JavaScript. I write my CI/CD in JavaScript. My application code is in JavaScript. Then I have all this long flow, and it's easier to reason about than having to learn YAML, having to learn GitHub Actions flavor of YAML, then coming back to learn some other tools, but having everything in one programming language, flows nice. And I think developers also appreciate that flow more, because they would rather want to read C sharp that imports module to run their, CI steps, than having to read like GitHub Actions YAML.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I'm more of an operations guy, so I
Yeah,
disagree. But yeah,
I
it's really crazy that there are so many tools like the ones you said that you can fully use code to manage your
yeah,
infrastructure. without YAML and such. That's yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I'm more of a generalist, so
Oh, me
I
too. Don't get me wrong.
I enjoy more having to write it in my programming language than trying to do YAML, and I think it's easier to convince developers to use these tools and than trying to learn the other one.
That's a trick. Yes, you can manipulate them into thinking they're doing development. Yeah, that's actually
I
good.
wouldn't say manipulating, I would say convincing, like a salesman.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, it's not manipulation if it's what it is. So yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool. So we are slowly getting up to time. I like your mustache, by the way. Yeah, so we are slowly getting close to time. Would like to, you talked a bit how you are running your platform engineering career. How would you advise people that are just getting started or want to get started in DevOps or platform engineering to, would they get started, whether be it resources, be it projects, or contributing to open source? How would you see this playing out?
Okay, so first of all, I think that the easiest way to get into tech is to go and become an operations guy, whatever it is. Be it a SRE, be it a tech support, be it a sysadmin. If you go into the operations path, you would have, I mean, it would be a lot more easier for you. And then if you're already a technical support, let's say, which is the base entry role, then you can go into system administration. But I think now site reliability engineering is more like it's easier to get in, and a lot of companies are just saying
Yeah.
no to sysadmin.
But
So
do you mean like sysadmin operations, or do you mean like technical support in terms of getting started?
in terms of getting started, I would go. I would say people to look for junior DevOps, junior SRE, and junior sysadmin. Those are the three roles that they should be looking for and pushing their resume for. If that doesn't work for a couple of months, they can go and look for technical support.
Okay.
And about projects you said or tools or how to contribute, I think it is really hard in the beginning to get a grasp of what's going on. So I mean, if I have to go over the list, that would sound overwhelming. And what people are we talking about? Are we talking about people who have no university degree, or are we talking about people who just finished school? Uh, I would I would say to watch my content. I don't know. Really, if I have to go over everything that a person might have to learn to be a sufficient DevOps, it might be a lot. But then there are a lot of details, like are you double speaking in your interview? Because if you're asked something and you say I don't know, you're not going to get that job. But if you're asked something and you say, well, I'm not sure, but, and you start explaining what you know and what you think, you show them your thought process. That is also a huge part of finding a job. It's I really can't give you a concise quick answer to that.
Yeah. If your YouTube videos helps them get the job, sure. So give us the link to it, and I'll put it in the chat. So I guess it's youtube.com/at Cubadenis, or was it?
Yes, yeah, I will send it to you. I don't have, I mean, I have a few videos on this topic, but I'm getting more on the way.
Okay.
And I also have I have a blog post actually. I can give you the blog post for junior DevOps engineers. Give me a second. And I
Okay.
also have the mid-level interview one.
Okay.
And when I try to do so many things, I literally forget what I did and then forget to link to it. So I'm sending you in our personal chat the blog post about what is DevOps
What is
and
DevOps? Yeah.
what are the company types. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to send you my blog post on the junior and mid-level interview for DevOps.
Ah, cool. So that's going to help not just junior level, but also senior level.
Yeah, mid-level and senior level. In the mid-level, in the mid-level blog post, I'm explaining that the mid-level and senior level are pretty similar, and the senior level DevOps is actually easier to pass than the mid-level, but
Yeah.
it's in the articles. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to show this site. I mean, I don't use it personally, but when I don't have a good answer to this kind of question as a roadmap, like I asked you, I just point them to this resource. It's called,
Roadmap SH, is it?
yeah, roadmap essays. Yeah,
It's so good, man. I looked at it a few days ago, and I opened the data science and the DevOps roadmaps. They are so good, and they have a lot of resources when you click on the roadmap. Good job to whoever did it. I liked it a
yeah.
lot.
I think I
It's
know
really
it
good.
started some years ago, mostly as a first of all front end, and now it's evolving. They have a lot of
It's
tools,
huge.
and
It's huge. It's a really good job to the
yeah.
people behind it.
Yeah,
It's
I think
amazing.
it's quite impressive. I mean, I would not agree with everything, like because maybe because of my own trajectory into DevOps, but yeah, I would say if it helps a lot for DevOps or maybe also SRE or typical operations, a
I
lot of it
think
helps.
I think the only problem with roadmap SH, it's not a problem actually because people often want to take shortcuts. The only, let's call it, problem with roadmaps is that it's very huge. The roadmap is very, very huge. And if a person wants to learn every single square from the roadmap, that would take too much time.
Yeah,
I
that's what
think
I mean.
there are roadmaps that you can take. You can learn a lot less than this and learn to talk about some of this and understand what those are. Get a job and then start learning all of the things from the roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. Because all this, like I asked you now, what you describe, the tools you describe you use in your DevOps role are very different from the tools I've used. I mean, most of them, not all, are different from what I've used. So there's a lot of tools for the job, but there are some fundamentals that transition over all this career. Maybe
Yeah,
if you say for a typical operations guy, the beginning here says learn a programming language. Maybe if you are just typical sysadmin or
exactly.
operations, you may not need to learn the language. But yeah,
No,
if you do some kind of
yeah,
scripting, maybe you learn Python. I'm not sure here if he made mention of like Ansible and Chef. I think a lot of
man,
people still use Ansible and Chef, and they are shipping huge production applications with it, and they don't
you'll
even
be
run on
amazed
Kubernetes.
by the number of DevOps workers that don't know how to code and have never coded. I mean,
Yeah,
it's it's easier to find people who can't code, and it's actually pretty hard to find DevOps guys that can code. So yeah,
yeah. So this is a good place to look through and start. But as with everything that comes with recommendation, you just have to apply judgment. But also when if you one trick is to go to LinkedIn, and if you want to work, maybe look for something within your locality or check for things within the companies you want to work and see what the requirement is in those kind of jobs. And if they make mention of Ansible or if they make mention of Kubernetes, then you can, learn those things to get that kind of job than trying to, this is a whole like 30-year career. If you just want to sit down and learn, like even when you talk of service mesh, it's a whole
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
huge topic when you talk of service mesh. So take your
yeah.
time, maybe if you don't want to be a deep programmer, maybe learn Python, because you can still do some scripting with it or data science stuff with it. I like JavaScript, so I just even I write my shell script now with JavaScript as well. That's what I do for my Fly City product. I write a lot of scripts using JavaScript. So that is one good way to start. While we've covered that, Dennis, do you have a book recommendation for or video course recommendation for people to, learn more about DevOps, either as junior or senior engineers?
Um, no, and I will tell you why. Because I mean, we live in a time where you said it yourself. You are more of a generalist, and I am
Yeah,
also more of a generalist. And it's very hard. to be a good generalist and cover a wide area of information by reading books. I like books. I am reading one book right now because I'm preparing for 15th of September. I'm going to teach operating systems, but it's just teenagers, man. I don't know what I'm going to do. They're going to 25 of them. But actually, I will give you something.
While you're looking for yours, I have one in my shelf here. It's called Hacking Kubernetes. I think it's really good and recommended if you want to know Kubernetes. And then the one for Linux, Learning Modern Linux. So you should check it out. And then when it comes to the whole idea of shipping software in terms of DevOps and continuous delivery, I recommend the book from De Farley. I think it's called Continuous Delivery by De Farley. Yeah, I highly recommend that to check it out if you are having CI/CD issues in your team or whatever. If you call it DevOps issue in your team, you should highly check it. But on a software engineering like SDLC lifecycle, maybe check out Modern Software Engineering also by Dave. I think those are quite interesting results to try. So you
Um,
have this continuous delivery by Dave Farley and Jess Humble. And
so for Kubernetes, I know that there is a guy, Nigel Poulton. He is having a lot of good content, and he literally just made it. I mean, he's only making Kubernetes content. He's very good. And then
yeah,
you check Bobby's books. One addition I want to say about finding a job and then learning the roadmap, you have to have someone to help you and guide you, and that someone is a mentor. And my mentor when I started in tech was Bobby, and he's insane. He wrote 6 books, and I
wow.
basically, yeah, he's insane. He has hundreds of blog posts. I can talk a lot about this guy, but not now. I sent you the link to Bobby's books. You can paste it.
Okay. So this one for Niger Bolton's YouTube channel. I know he has some Pluralsight course. I think I did one of them. I like a lot Docker in a month of launches. I think Docker in a month of launches. I
You're not
think
typing. You're out focused. Oh no, you're on your tab.
I think he had a series of videos. The author, he was streaming his book, and you should check out his channel. It's quite a huge series, and I really
Mm,
enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. Docker in a month of launches. So check that out. I'll put it in the channel chat message as well. Maybe later I can curate them all. And those are quite some nice books. We have also the one from Bobby, which I'll be putting in the chat as well. So I think there's already a lot of books to cover. So uh, we're coming to the end. So any last word that you want to say that I didn't get to ask you or comment about during our chat?
no, it's all fine. It was very nice actually. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It felt more like, very conversational, very helpful, exchanging information. This is actually the first non-web performance and HTTP caching video on my channel. So maybe I will do more of this, like talking about DevOps or software engineering in general, getting experts to share like ideas about it. I talked about Dagger. Maybe I will get the guy from Dagger to, give us
Yeah,
like have a
have
conversation
conversations with
about
people. Yeah.
Dagger. Pulumi, I haven't used. Maybe if I can get someone from Pulumi to, show off the product. I get asked to from one of the audience some weeks ago to do more of like non-web performance, like they want to know about like databases, web apps. So maybe
Yeah.
if I find people, I would get them. But still,
You should get an engineer from Firebase and engineer at Supabase, and you should your live stream, and you should ask them questions and
oh,
ask them for
I
actual advice.
I think that would be good. Firebase versus Supabase.
Yeah.
Get someone to talk about it. That would be like a massive, show of engineering products. You know, they are quite interesting product, and I'm curious. I don't hear much about Firebase these days. Like now, oh, you're a Firebase guy.
I am using it, and I'm not a Firebase guy because
Okay.
they really made it so that you pay, man. They want you to pay. But the feature is also very good. And if you know how to do it, like don't read thousands of documents at once, but do documents in collections,
Yeah.
it's nice and it's very easy, but it's just a JSON file at the end of the day. So it's not really a database.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So this channel still we do a lot of content video around web performance, CDS, and HTTP caching. So next week we have another live stream coming up on Thursday as well from a professor in France. I think he's a professor. We'll be talking about web performance, CADI servers, web servers. If that piques your interest, subscribe on the YouTube channel and stay tuned for when I announce the live stream next week. I promise it's going to be fun just as much as I've had with Dennis today. And see you next time. Leave a comment.